Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about transit Neptune, square opposition, or inconjunct one's natal Venus. Now, when we're talking about transits that involve Neptune, well, it could manifest in dreams, fantasies, inspiration, self-sacrifice, ideals, things that are unrealistic. And when you're talking about transit Neptune, basically making an adverse aspect to one's natal Venus, well, it could manifest in, well, first I want to be kind and rewind. I'm going to elaborate on when I say basically adverse aspect. Now, squares and oppositions, of course, those aspects are negative and adverse in astrology. Now, the inconjunct aspect, though, is neutral. A neutral aspect can have good and bad qualities to it, coupled with the fact that an inconjunct aspect can often involve an adjustment or transition. And those things, of course, can cause some exasperation and tension. So collectively, basically, I do see this as an adverse transit. Now, again, when you have transit Neptune, basically, making an adverse aspect to one's natal Venus, well, it may manifest in dreams, fantasies, inspiration, self-sacrificing, ideals, even things that are unrealistic may conflict with things of a monetary nature. What you may, fantasize about monetarily may not be attainable, or it might be where you might be more unrealistic at this time in terms of what you can generate monetarily in X amount of time. It's good to be idealistic about things, and that can include making money, accumulating material possessions, but just guard against unrealism at this point in time. There also can be greater susceptibility toward financial fraud. People who have this transit can have a greater propensity at this time, maybe greater propensity to being more gullible regarding things of a monetary nature. It's imperative to look at contracts and look at the fine print in these things and make sure people aren't trying to pull one over on you. And invest, if you're making a deal or you're trying to invest something somewhere. Make sure you Google the company and it's the Better Business Bureau or whatever you got to do to ensure that it's reputable and that this is not a scam that is being it's not a scam that is going on. So anyway, well, Venus is also about what we enjoy, and it might be at this time you might feel somewhat lethargic or sleepy. You might not even feel like doing the things that you're enamored with, the things that you truly enjoy at this time. If the natal Venus, say, is in Taurus, it could be something with gardening or cultivating or art, architecture, agriculture, or some form of art like drawing or painting or even singing. Those things might not be quite as enjoyable at this point in time. And there may also be some confusion at this time as far as your self-worth and your self-esteem and how you feel about yourself. As far as what can actually maybe increase it? Why are you lower? Maybe you're low on self-worth at this time. What are the reasons for it? And these things might be harder to try to figure out and grasp at this time. Now, another thing too is that Venus is also connected with what we value, our values. So we have to guard against values that might not be feasible, things that are unrealistic at this time, and it was things that might be superficial, as an example, the things that are not really getting us anywhere at this point in time. And the thing about this too, it could also be a time where, Neptune is about escapism, so it might be a time where it might be harder. You're trying to escape certain relationships, whether they're significant friendships, whether they're it's a significant other, maybe perhaps in some isolated cases. Those things may be more difficult than usual at this time. Again, Venus is connected with possessions and resources. It may be a time where perhaps there's something where you might be, again, Neptune is about being unrealistic. You may be more unrealistic regarding these things at this time, whether it's about retaining them or whether it's about accumulating a certain amount of possessions at a certain point in time. Um, it can also be a time, I mean, Venus is also connected with the food that we enjoy. So it may be a time too where, the Neptune again, is unrealistic energy, but it's about inspiration. Maybe there's something going on where you don't even have, you're very, uninspired, where it's even hard not to just do things that you enjoy, but even the food you may love to indulge in at this time. Those, even things like that, may be a little bit more difficult, more so than usual. Um, it can even be a time where maybe you're self-sacrificing for others, where you're not even getting the time maybe to have that food to and really indulge what you really want at this time to eat, because you're making some sacrifice for others. You might be helping those less fortunate than yourself, such as the impoverished, the oppressed, the homeless, the hungry, at this time. It can be a time to, I mean, Venus anatomically speaking is connected with the throat, the neck, the thyroid, kidneys, and lower back. So at this time, if you're having any problems with them, with these things, maybe they're more nebulous and unclear. It might be harder to understand, or even have a doctor to diagnose what exactly, what is the point with this? What is the problem? What is actually causing the problem at this point in time? Neptune is also connected with drugs and alcohol. Now, I believe alcohol can have an effect on the kidneys. I'm not sure about the thyroid or the throat or the neck area. But the thing about that is, if it can have an adverse effect on it, then this is the time where there would be a greater propensity for that. Also, too, uh, Venus is also connected with lawsuits. So there may be a lawsuit. If it happens, it might be one that you don't quite understand, comes out of the blue. Maybe it's fallacious, maybe it's something that somebody's fabricating just to get at you at this time. Um, it may be, something where, if you're trying to escape a lawsuit or trying to avoid it somehow, or you're trying to negotiate a way out of it, it may be more difficult than usual to do so. If you're trying to extricate yourself from it at this point in time, it might be a little bit harder. And another thing too, I mean, Venus is connected with legalities, of course. It's associated with lawsuits. It's also connected with legalities, and these things, I mean, again, could be a little bit more, you know, um, they might be nebulous or unclear. You might not be overly inspired to do anything about if there's a legal issue that you have to address at this point in time. It can be a time. I mean, you're talking about Neptune is connected with dreams, and it can be our sleep. And if you have any legal issues or lawsuit, this could be where it might be disruptive toward that sleep, toward you relaxing at this time more so than usual. Venus is also about peace. And it can be where there might be some chaos that's going on in your some part of your life, and depending on where Neptune is transiting that sector of life, is where you might be experiencing some chaos, and it may be conflicting or challenging you having that peaceful and tranquil existence at this point in time. Now, Venus is also associated with art. And you might find at this time, if you're artistically inclined and have an affinity for art, it may be harder at this time to even have that energy to even do it right at this point in time, to be artistic. You might be somewhat lethargic or sleepy, and you might lack that motivation, that inspiration in order to do it at this point in time. And also, too, Venus is connected with negotiations, and might be a thing where there's some kind of negotiation you're trying to do, and it's somebody, and Neptune again is really, it's energy where again it can be lethargic, it's sleepiness, it's more, it can be tiredness. It might be harder to do these things at this time, even things with negotiation. Because of this, you might not be overly inspired to do so at this time. You might think it's too much of a sacrifice on your part to negotiate. Maybe you feel you're giving in by doing so, by trying to negotiate a situation, where, in contrast to just having something your way. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, now another way this transit may manifest, it could be about sacrifice. Or self-sacrificing may conflict with a relationship or significant friendship. Say if the natal Venus is in Capricorn, as an example, it may be, with somebody that's an older. It could be an older relationship. It might be, a significant friend that's older, more mature, responsible. Um, it can be a situation too. I mean, another way this transit may manifest, it can be dealing with chaos in your life somewhere. It may challenge money-making ventures. Say if the natal Venus is in Aquarius, as an example, it could be something with astrology or astronomy or innovation, aerospace. It can be even rocket science in some cases, electronics, computers, anything connected with Aquarius. Also, too, some cases, lethargy may adversely affect doing those things that you enjoy. Let's say, for example, if the natal Venus is in Sagittarius, it could be something with archery or religion or exploration or adventure, going to foreign places. Um, it can be something too. I mean, another way this transit may be expressed, there may be a greater propensity, to reiterate what I said previously, greater propensity for financial fraud, being duped in finances. Now, for example, let's say the natal Venus is in Scorpio. It might be some insurance or credit card fraud that you may be having to contend with at this time. Uh, there may be issues. I mean, if you have any issues with the feet, the toes, the lymphatic or immune system, it may make it more difficult. Those things may be more difficult to afford, or it may be harder to afford other things in your life at this time due to that. If you're having to take care of something monetarily connected with what I stated before, that's associated with Neptune. Now, it could also be taking, with this time as well. Again, I would be very careful regarding alcohol use at this time. Kidneys, I believe alcohol use can adversely affect kidneys. If you already have a kidney issue, like kidney disease or kidney stones, I believe it could exacerbate the issue, but you may want to confer that on the internet. I believe alcohol certainly can help matters, and even if it doesn't do anything to kidneys, at the same time, drinking in the long run, I think, can actually make it harder to cope with certain things, because if you're trying to deal with a drinking issue and you're contending with something of a physical nature, it's really going to cause, in the long run, cause more emotional turmoil, I think. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying, stay well.